Hey, how's it going everyone? Welcome to my LEGO Legacy farming guide for spring 2020. Now the first thing I want to say before we start is this is not a definitive guide. There are a lot of varying opinions on which characters you should go after and which teams you should put the most focus into early on. So this is going to be what I think is best, but I definitely recommend asking around and seeing what other people think as well. Bulldog1205 has a great farming guide as well. I'll leave a link to his video in the description. Highly recommend checking his out as well, just for a second opinion. Also, this is specifically for spring 2020 because this advice is going to change pretty quickly as characters are reworked and new ones are added to the game, and even as we get new sets and new abilities and stuff like that. So some of this advice might not be as applicable a few months down the road, and a few of these farms will take more than a few months. Like for example, I think to complete all of the mashup store farms to 7 stars will take around 7 months, I think, 6-7 months maybe. So obviously by then, if they add a new character to the mashup store or something like that, then the advice will definitely change. But this should get you started on the right track. Okay, let's start here at the top with the mashup and arena store farms, since these will have some very clear star goals, whereas the campaign farms are a bit more fluid. So starting with mashup, I first recommend that you get Cook Bart up to 3 stars. That should be your very first goal when you unlock that store. And that's so that you can have 3 pirates at 3 stars ready to go for the coin event. Basically how the coin event works is you can use just 3 pirates for the first 3 tiers of the event. But once you get to tier 4, you do need a full team of 5 pirates at 4 stars. So you basically want to get to that 3rd tier as early as possible, because getting to that 4th one is going to take a while. Now when you first start out, you're actually going to get a free 3-star Princess Argenta, so you're not going to have to worry about getting her tiles for a while. And you also get 3 tiles for Captain Redbeard every day, as long as you're doing your dailies, which you definitely should be doing. And if you do get those 3 tiles, you'll have him at 3 stars in just about 3 weeks, which is roughly at about the same time that you will be getting Cook Bart up to 3 stars if you are farming him exclusively from the mashup store. So basically by just farming Cook Bart up to 3 stars, you will have a pirate team ready to go in about 3 weeks, and then you can start getting a decent amount of coins every week from that coin event. After you get him to 3 stars, I recommend that you swap to Zane and take him all the way to 7. Zane is a fantastic character. Of course, he works great in a Ninjago team, but he also works in other teams as well. He's a very versatile character, and he's also a pretty effective counter to the current meta of Burnibus, Magisto, and Jester. And then, of course, he also might be getting a rework soon, so he has potential to get even better. After that, I recommend that you take Verda up to 5 stars, specifically for the Officer Primo event. Now, she's a solid character, she has some pretty good damage at a higher star level, but she's not essential to any team, even King's Court teams. Often at the top end of Arena, you'll see her be replaced by someone like Lloyd, or Hiker, or Bart, or even someone like Captain Redbeard. So she's not really an essential character, with the exception being the Officer Primo event, which requires 5 castle at 5 stars. Now, Officer Primo is not an amazing character. He is really solid, and he's going to give a massive boost to your existing city team. So I think he's a pretty useful one to have, and when we can eventually take him to 6 and 7 stars, he's going to become much more effective, and there is potential for him to get a rework as well, so he could become even better too. After her, I think you should swap back to Cook Bart and take him all the way to 7. He's going to be very useful for completing the later tiers of the coin event, and he's also just a fantastic healer all around. Works in multiple teams, not necessarily just pirates. And then after that, you can go back to Verda if you want, or you can go for Businessman. That's really up to you. That's why there's the slash there. It's up to you to choose. That doesn't really matter too much. Okay, now let's talk about the arena store. There are a lot of different opinions on who you should farm from this store. Some people think Brutus is the one to go for, some people say Valiant, some say Ash. I think the best one is Lloyd, and here's why. Yes, it is true that King's Court is debatably the best team in the entire game right now. But Brutus does not play a big part in that. Those King's Court teams are dominant right now because of the trio I mentioned earlier of Magisto, Jester, and Burnibus. Brutus throwing around a taunt can actually be detrimental to your team and can sometimes help the enemy focus down on one unit when instead you would want Jester to be the one that's taunting to heal everyone up, or Burnibus to be the one taunting to then counterattack and heal back up. So Brutus can actually hurt your King's Court team instead of helping them. At the top of my current leaderboard in Arena, most of the King's Court teams in like the top 25 are not using Brutus, and instead they're using someone like Lloyd in his place. And whenever I'm climbing in Arena, I always try to fight the teams that have Brutus, because those battles are always much easier. Lloyd, on the other hand, is arguably the best character in the game and works really well in just about any team, including King's Court, Pirates, Ninjago Space, pretty much everything. He's just a really useful character all around. Now, he is going to be getting some kind of nerf in the near future. Now, I personally don't think it's going to be a very dramatic nerf. I think if anything, they're going to remove the dodge up from his special ability that also gives stealth. I don't think they're going to remove the part of his kit that actually gives the stealth. I think that's going to stay the same. So I still think Lloyd is going to be one of the best units in this game, even after his nerf, and I think it's definitely worth it to farm him early. Now, I do recommend that you stop farming tiles for Lloyd once you get him to 5 stars, and then swap over to Valiant and take him up to 5 stars. Now, that might seem kind of counterintuitive since you're going to be using Lloyd in your Arena team. Why wouldn't you keep upgrading your Arena characters? But the thing about Lloyd is he's still very viable even at 5 stars. A couple months ago, I was using my 5-star Lloyd to climb to first in Arena, and I was beating full 7-star Gear 6 level 50 teams. So 7 stars is definitely not required for Lloyd. Of course it's helpful, and eventually you are going to want to get him to 7 stars, but you're still going to be able to climb in Arena with him just at 5. Now here's the thing, I personally made the mistake of taking him all the way to 7. Now taking a character from 5 to 7 stars takes 250 tiles, but to take a character from 0 to 5 is only 190. So instead of having Lloyd at 7 stars right now, I could instead have a 5-star Lloyd and a 5-star Valiant or maybe a 5-star Brutus with 60 tiles left over. So potentially I could be completing the 5th tier of the coin event right now, or I could be completely ready for Officer Primo when he comes around next. But instead, I just have a slightly beefier Lloyd, which doesn't really even matter once you get Aurora, since she'll just keep reviving him anyway, even if he does die. So I definitely think it's worth it to stop at 5 stars, maybe 6 stars if you really want to take him up a little bit further. But I would not recommend taking him to 7 before you get some of the other characters from this store up to 5 stars. Now after Lloyd, I recommend that you go to Valiant and get him up to 5 stars, just to get a little bit further in the coin event. Now there is an argument to be made that you should farm for Laquay or Lackey or Lackey or however you pronounce that guy's name, that you should farm for him instead of Valiant. But that's a lot of energy to farm a pretty useless character, whereas Valiant is actually a really solid pirate, and he's going to help you a lot in the Glyph Hunt. Glyph Hunt is definitely more difficult than Piptown United, so it will help quite a bit to have that 5-star Valiant. But I do think you should stop there at 5 stars, because new pirates are going to be added pretty soon, and just by reading their kits, they seem like they're going to be a lot better than Valiant, so they'll probably be the better choices to take all the way to 7. Instead of Valiant. After him, I do recommend that you farm Brutus at least up to 5 stars so that you can unlock Officer Primo, and then after that you can kind of do what you want. If you want to take Lloyd all the way up to 7, you can go ahead and do that. If you want to take Brutus up higher, you can do that as well, or if you want to start farming towards Ash, who's one of the best damage dealers in the game, you could do that as well. Okay, now let's talk about the campaign farms. Now, these do not have specific star goals like the stores do, and that's because you can actually farm multiple of these at once, and you're not going to have them all unlocked. Like, once you unlock the arena store, you can just choose to buy any character there, whereas with campaigns, it's going to take a while before you start unlocking these nodes, and then you can start farming the character. So in the meantime, you have to have something to farm. That's why Darwin is right up here at the front. He's going to be the first one you'll see in Glyph Hunt, and it's worth picking up a few tiles for him. Eventually, you are going to want to come back to him and take him up to at least 5 stars for the coin event. But while you're still working towards Burnibus and Kai and the other future nodes, go ahead and pick up a few tiles for Darwin. You're not going to regret it. They will be useful later on. After a little bit of playing though, you will unlock the Burnibus and Kai nodes, and you should begin farming these characters. I would say put more priority onto farming Burnibus. You want to get him to 5 stars for the Officer Primo event, and he's also a really great character for Arena. You're probably going to want to use him in your Arena team along with Jester, Magisto, Lloyd, and probably one other. That's basically what this guide is going to set you up to do. It's going to give you a lot of options for what you want that Arena team to be. But I think that Jester, Burnibus, Magisto, Lloyd, and then one other is a great place to start. I might even throw one attacker in there, maybe like Highwayman. That team would be really solid, and you would probably be able to climb up to first. But if instead of Burnibus you wanted to put more focus into Kai, you could do that as well, and go more of a Ninjago route with your Arena team, put more focus into Zane, and then you could go Zane, Lloyd, Kai, and then maybe Jester and Hiker or something like that. After them, you will unlock Aurora's node, and I highly recommend that you start farming tiles for her. She is a really amazing character and can work well in a lot of teams. She really helps with the survivability, and she can really help a lower star team do better in Arena, since she can just keep bringing them back if they die. And even if you don't plan to use her in your Arena team, maybe you want to go more of a full King's Court focus or something like that, I still think it's worth farming her just because she is super useful in the campaigns, and I have no doubt that she will eventually be very important for Brickspedition. Energy refills pretty quickly in this game, so ideally you should be able to farm Burnibus, Kai, and Aurora all at the same time. Maybe not all 6 attempts for each one of their nodes, because that would be a lot, but if you're ever running low on energy, go ahead and buy one of the 50 gem energy refreshes, maybe 2 if you really need to. I would not go into the 100s, because that's not really worth it anymore. But definitely buy the 250s. I personally recommend doing one of the regular energy refreshes and one of the mashup refreshes, and that should set you up to get a lot of tiles for a lot of characters every day. After her though is Yuppie. He is definitely more of an endgame character. I personally would not recommend that you start farming tiles for him until you have the other 4 characters here at least at 5 stars, because Yuppie is probably the most difficult farm in the entire game. It's going to be really slow to get his tiles. I think he has 220 energy nodes or something like that. He's a really slow farm. So he's definitely going to be more late game, but he is an amazing character that you are going to want to get around to eventually. Then we have Piptown United. Again, you'll see Darwin here. This is just another node that you can farm while you're waiting to unlock the future ones, and eventually you are going to want to come back to this one as well to take Darwin up to 5 stars. Hiker's also here. You're mainly going to farm Hiker from his Monolith Waste node, not so much from his Piptown United node. But early on, it might be worth it to put a little bit of energy into farming him from here as well. Then we have Nia and Argenta. Argenta is another one of the pirates, so you're going to want to try to take her like up to 5 stars as early as possible to just start competing in the higher tiers of the coin event. Eventually, you are going to need a full 7-star pirate team to compete in that last tier. So that's definitely more of a long-term goal, but 5 stars is more manageable early on. And then I threw Nia here just because we know the Ninjago faction's getting a rework. I don't know if it does include Nia, but if it is, if the rework does include her and she becomes much better, it'll be nice to have her like at around 5 stars. So I've begun farming her, or I mean, I've been farming her for a while now. I think I have her at almost 6 stars. So if she does get reworked and she gets a bit better, I'll be set. And I think it is worth it to start farming her a little bit. Anyway, after them we have Aurora again. Ideally, you should be farming her from both her Glyph Hunt and Piptown United nodes to get her up as quickly as possible. Once you get her to around 5 stars, I would probably swap over to Highwayman, and if possible, try to farm Highwayman at the same time that you are Aurora as well. That is a lot of energy, so you might have to be spending those 250s on the regular energy and not doing a mashup energy refresh, but it's definitely worth it because Aurora, Highwayman, Kai, Burnibus, Nia, Argenta, there's a lot of really good important characters here. Nia isn't that great, but she might be important. There's a lot of important characters from these nodes that I do recommend, including Highwayman. Highwayman, as you know, one of the best attackers in the entire game. I would say he's probably the #1 attacker, just because he does hide under stealth for the entire battle, so he is going to be around till the end, so I feel like overall he would do more damage than Ashe, just because the enemy would probably target Ashe earlier on. But if you put her into a team with a bunch of tanks, she can stack up that courage pretty quickly, and she can dish out a lot of damage as well. So it's definitely debatable, but I personally think that Highwayman is a bit better. And then at the very end here is Commander Cold. He is not an amazing character by any stretch, but he is a space character, and that means he's needed for the Gorwill's Great Escape event, which actually rewards some pretty great gear. So I do recommend that eventually you put some focus into your space team, not because they're great characters, although they are really fun to play, but they're not like top-end arena meta, but the return on investment is going to be pretty high with the Gorwill's Great Escape event. And then finally we have the Monolith Waste Farms. I think Cactus Girl here is actually the very first Monolith node, so it is going to be worth farming her a little bit, especially for the Piptown United campaigns. She's a solid attacker, but she did get a couple of nerfs, so she's no longer as effective as she once was, so I don't recommend taking her above 5 stars. I personally have a 7-star Cactus Girl, which was definitely a mistake. I should have been putting a lot of that focus into Jester or a better character. But as soon as you can, I would recommend that you swap and start farming Hiker's node. You're basically going to want to farm this one until you get Hiker to 7 stars. He's a great character, and not so much at endgame, but he's really good in the early to mid game, and of course very useful for campaigns as well. Then we have Headley, who might seem like a weird one to throw in here. He's solid early on, like really early on in like your first arena team. He's not great later game, but he is needed at 5 stars for the Officer Primo event, so it is worth taking him up just for that. Then we have Jester, who's one of the best tank healer combos in the game, so I highly recommend that you farm this guy to 7 stars as well. Him and Hiker should be your main 2 focuses here. Prioritize them over the other characters and try to get them to 7 stars as quickly as you can. Then we have Reed and Locust. These are 2 really solid space characters. They can be used in arena late game. Reed is really good at 7 stars with maxed abilities. He has a stun. If you don't know, stuns in this game actually disable passives, which is really powerful, especially against King's Court teams, because they really rely on their passives to work well together. And then Locust is a solid attacker tank combo. He has a taunt, but he also has some pretty solid AoE damage with his special ability and his new ultimate, which is currently bugged. For some reason it inflicts damage over time instead of offense down, so once that's fixed, he'll just become even better. He's a really solid character. And then at the end here, Blacktron, Dwayne, and Calvin, not great characters by any means. I really hope Blacktron Dwayne gets a rework soon, because obviously I love the character. But space is needed for that gear event I mentioned earlier, so it's definitely worth farming them up. And I assume that space will eventually get more characters and get reworks and whatnot, so they have potential to become better as well, since this is still a very brand new game. It's only been out for like 2-3 weeks, so I think a lot of balance changes are going to happen in the next 6 months or whatever, and I think some of the worst teams and worst characters in the game might become a bit better. So basically the way this farming guide is set up is to give you a solid team in multiple factions, like a solid pirate team, a solid King's Court team, and some solid Ninjago characters, and then from there you can kind of lean into certain ones that you want to farm more of. For example, if you really want to go for King's Court, then put a little more focus into farming Burnibus and Jester, but everything else should stay pretty much the same. If you really want to go more for Ninjago, then put more focus into Kai and Nia if you're hoping for that rework. And if you want to go more for pirates, prioritize Darwin and Argenta over characters like Burnibus and Nia and whatnot. But yeah, this is more of a fluid farming guide that will allow you to put more focus into a team that you think is best while still staying on track with all the other teams. So with that said, if you have any questions, feel free to ask and I will try to answer every single one. Alright, thanks for watching.